All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Jeffrey Richardson here with the Search Ads Maven Kochava team. We're excited to have you here today. We're going to let a few moments kind of roll by here to let some attendees jump on since we're right at the top of the hour. If you're joining, our very own Matt Goodrich is in the chat up in the upper right sidebar. So feel free to jump in there and say hello. Let us know where you're joining from and what the weather's like where you're at today. And we'll get kicked off here momentarily, do some announcements, intro our speakers, and dive into Ask Me Anything. All right, looks like we're about a minute over and we've got some numbers climbing. So, all right, let's go ahead and officially kick this off. So again, I'm Jeffrey Richardson for those that have joined in the last few, like 30 seconds, Director of Product Marketing here at Kochava. If you don't know, who Kochava is and it's your first time encountering us, we have been a mobile measurement partner, one of the first MMPs founded all the way back in 2011. So across really the past 14 years, helping brands measure and optimize their mobile app ad spend, user engagement, deep linking, et cetera. In 2021, we launched Search Ads Maven, which is a campaign management and automation and AI tooling platform for Apple search ads, which of course now is Apple ads. There's been a lot of shifts lately with Apple search ads to Apple ads and some other variables, which we'll talk about and unpack today. But we offer the Search Ads Maven platform for campaign management and automation, and then also MMM, right? So marketing mix modeling, which is a future-proof kind of privacy-safe measurement of the future, I like to call it, that will withstand the test of time as we have all the rapid changes and evolution in the digital advertising landscape. So we're happy to have you here today. We're going to dive in with our panel of experts into the topic at hand. And if you have questions, we want you to put them into the Q&A box. So let's jump into some announcements and kind of quick logistics items. Again, the chat is over up in the right-hand corner of your window. So Matt Goodrich from our team is in there. If you would like to say hello, let us know where you're joining from, your title, what the weather's like where you're at, please do so. There is a separate tab for Q&A. So you'll see that. That's where you can plug in your questions live. So we have a ton of questions we already received during kind of RSVP and all the different registrations we got from the webinar. We will cover those, but live questions, we'll prioritize those as well and work those in. So ask your questions there. If you do put it in the chat by mistake, don't worry, Matt will send it to me and we'll make sure to try and get to those. If we don't get to every question, which is very likely, we will follow up after the webinar. The webinar is being recorded. We get that question a lot. So yes, it will be available on demand after the event today. So if you want to watch again, or you feel like, oh, I got to take screenshots or write things down, don't worry, you'll be able to watch it again at your leisure later. You'll receive an email from us about 24 hours after the webinar today with a link to watch it. And then last but not least, we have some helpful resources in the Docs tab. That's up in the right there as well, next to the Q&A and the chat. Feel free to check those out, open those in another tab and peruse those after the webinar is over. We also have LinkedIn links for some of our key speakers today if you want to connect with them after the webinar. So let's go ahead and jump in and meet our speakers. So I'm going to bring them up onto the stage right now, and we will have each of them introduce themselves before we officially jump into our discussion. So perfect. We've got Hamilton joining, Jeff Lawrence, Julia Kahn, and Yuri. All right, we've got you all here. So perfect. All right, so let's go ahead, and I've already said my piece and introduced myself. Let's go in the order on the actual slide here. And let's have Hamilton, then Yuri, then Julia, and Jeff, just one by one down the line.
Hey everybody, Hamilton Radcliffe. I'm General Manager of Search Ads Maven. I've been at Kochava for 3 years now. I live and breathe the ASA world. I love it. These kinds of conversations where you're asking questions about how to do things. I absolutely love this kind of interaction and dialogue. I've been doing it for a little while, and I think it's a great platform to be on and to advertise on. I come in from Oracle Advertising, where I was for 8 years. I went into Oracle through an acquisition of the company I was working at, Datalogix, back in 2014. So I have quite a bit of background in ad tech. That's me. Glad to be here.
Good to have you.
Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Yuri, and really thank you, Hamilton and Jeffrey, for inviting me here. What I do is I help apps grow with App Store optimization strategies and user acquisition campaigning. And something else about me is that I'm also deep into my MBA thesis, which is also about subscription apps and App Store optimization. I'm afraid it makes me a little bit boring and too obsessed, with screenshots and rankings and things like that. But I really hope that everybody will enjoy this webinar and be able to, learn something new.
Yuri, I'm dying to read and review your thesis. You got to send me an early read.
Absolutely.
Everybody, my name is Julia Can, and I'm the Managing Director for Kochava's Advertiser Solutions here, which includes our mobile measurement platform, our marketing mix modeling platform, and our Apple Ads bid campaign management tool. I've been in the mobile space since 2012, mobile analytics in particular. And in the last couple of years, I spent a lot of time with marketing managers who are using Apple Ads as a channel for user acquisition. Whether you're spending a couple $1,000 per month or a couple $1 million per month, there's always ways to find more efficiencies as well as to find ways to scale. So I'm looking forward to sharing more best practices with the rest of the panelists today.
Hey everyone, my name is Jeff Lawrence. I'm a senior client success manager here at Kochava, working on the Search Ads Maven product. I've been with Kochava for 3 years. Like Hamilton, I'm sort of obsessed with the ASA platform. I love working with this stuff and seeing how we can make our clients successful and drive performance.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jeff, Julia, Yuri, Hamilton, I'm glad we've got all 4 of you here today because we've got kind of an AMA. So no matter what questions you might have, throw them at us. We'll start picking off the ones that we got from registration here. And I want to kick off by starting with a poll to gauge the audience in terms of your familiarity with Apple Ads / Apple Search Ads. So I'm going to launch that right now in the polls tab. So up in the upper right, same place that the docs, the Q&A, chat are located, you'll see a poll option and a little red dot to notate that that's open. So jump over there and vote when you have a chance. And while you're doing that, I kind of want to do kind of a backup, if you will. And, we're here talking about Apple Ads. Sometimes there's the assumption that, we work with it every day, but somebody that might be brand new to it and has no idea what it is, or they're at the very early stages. I'd like to kind of just back up and do a Apple Ads overview. So maybe, between Hamilton, Yuri, and then of course, Jeff and Julia, feel free to jump in, but maybe explain Apple Ads to me as if I'm encountering it as a possible channel for the first time.
Yeah, so I think that basically, Apple Search Ads has been around for almost a decade, right? And I think it's still today, for me, it's the most interesting ad platform because you can do so many things, manually, and it's also search intent. So there are keywords, there are ads that are non-keywords ads. So there are a lot of things. I think the most important part is the search results. This is the basic, this is where everybody should really start because this is intent-based, and probably the best return that you're gonna get on Apple Search Ads will come from these ads, or at least the easiest return to measure would come from search results. But they also developed in the recent years with some other products that are also, I think, interesting. For me, after search results, I think product pages is the most interesting because of that. This is the only one that you actually can target something besides the basic targeting of existing users or new users, because you can choose to show your ads on a very good placement in other in other apps based on their category. So if it's a similar app to yours, you can show on a pretty good placement where you also get a lot of organic installs from. And then the search tab and the today tab. So I think they are the last ones in priority where they're a good placement. The problem there that there are not organic installs usually coming from these places. So the paid ones are also more complicated to measure and to track, and then you need to go to analyze based on view through conversion and things like that. But I've seen them work also. So
yeah, I find Today tab and Search tab a great place for people to expand volume when they've really gotten to the extent of volume they can get from either non-brand or brand keywords on the search results. It tends to give you a really great place to continue to grow into. One thing to note is that these are in order left to right as a user might experience them. When you open up the App Store and you're first starting to go find an app, you start with the Today tab, and that second placement is an ad for the Today tab. Then you go to the search magnifying glass, that is the search tab page that you see as that second image, and the top listed suggested item, that's an ad. The next is a search result. You've actually typed something in, you get the organic rankings, but the first one is the ad. And then if you select one of those apps to get more information, that's the product pages. At the very bottom, there are suggested other apps. The first one there is an ad.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about, with the recent change from Apple search ads to Apple ads, the rebrand, if you will. One of the main reasons they cited was obviously when Apple search ads first came out in 2016, search results was the only placement type. And since they later added search tab, then Today tab and product pages. And so it's definitely gone beyond just a search offering. So hence the shift to take search out of it so as not to pigeonhole themselves, I think.
Yeah, the rebranding was actually one thing that I was most excited about in recent publications or updates from Apple, simply because I'm hoping it suggests the expansion of inventory into other placement types, either within the App Store or outside. I think there's real potential there to make things super interesting.
Yeah. I think most spend is probably still on search results, or that's where a lot of focus of time is. But I know that your team has worked with different brands on different types of strategies, whether it be, how you manage your daily spend and budget, to the types of targeting that are available on a Today tab placement versus search results. Obviously, the intent of search results and understanding the keyword they start to type in kind of changes the game. It gives you way more signal to basically optimize and target off of than some of the other placements. So let's see, let me go ahead now. We've got some poll results. Let me share these poll results to the screen. So we have a good mix here of experience for the audience. Oh, and live votes coming in. Usually that happens whenever we display the poll results on the screen, we get another round of engagement. So we have a good spread here. Some in the not at all camp, beginner, moderate, seasoned, veteran, total pro. So that's pretty, if you're a total pro, maybe we'll have to bring you up on stage here. I don't think we have that option, but way to go. And seasoned veteran. So how does this fit? Gosh, any one of you four could answer this, but obviously you work with a lot of iOS developers, iOS app marketers. Does this kind of fit with your experience and the people you've talked to in your work?
Jeff, go ahead, Julia.
I was going to say the poll results are not surprising to me. We work with companies with all sorts of backgrounds. There's still a lot of people developing new apps on the market, and they find that Apple Ads is one of the first networks that they'll turn to. So a lot of beginners, and then a lot of seasonality as well, because for verticals such as sports betting or gaming, where they've been in the app market for a very long time, we see that user acquisition or marketing managers have been in those roles or been in the same vertical. So you'll see that there's people who are, as Jeff mentioned, total pros and have a lot of experience with Apple Ads.
Yeah. While we have these on screen too, I'm actually going to share our first question from live audience today from Tamanda. So does search tab really help other campaigns, especially brand campaigns, in terms of costs and volumes? Anyone want to bite off on that and answer that for Tamanda?
Yuri, I'm interested to know if you've seen any. connection.
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, like I usually what I prefer is starting with search results and then going to the product page. But the third one is going to be search tab. I mean, the today tab is the least favorable in my opinion because it's very difficult to measure its performance. The search tab is a little bit better, and also I like how Hamilton presented the user flow. So obviously the today tab, people just open it, and so maybe there isn't intent at all. But when they start searching, so it means that they are looking for something, but we still don't know what exactly. So it could be a good placement, and it's a good brand placement in my opinion, because you can treat it as a brand. It's not performance marketing, when you put an ad on the Today tab. There's no targeting, you don't know really where it shows or who sees it. But in terms of intent, there is some intent. So you will be able to see some also conversions from a campaign that you can treat as a brand campaign, and you don't really expect anything from it. And when I say brand, I don't mean the brand protect, the search brand campaign. I'm just talking about general branding. So I think it's one of the better branding campaigns today anywhere. Also, if you compare it to Google Display, for example, which I don't see a lot of value there at all. Here you do see. So I think it does. The answer is yes, it does helps. It can be difficult to measure, okay, but at least you're going to see installs. You're going to know how much installs you got from it and what is the cost per installs, and if it's in place with your overall strategy. So this is something that you will also probably keep running, right, if you have the budget.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Amanda. I'm not. I think that to the degree that over the last 20 years, one thing that we have, I believe, absolutely proved is that advertising works. Getting the most out of it is what gets really difficult. And so with that principle, advertising on search tab and Today tab, which is even further upper funnel, I think it's going to drive people's awareness of your product, and to the degree that that drives them to the search results for your brand keyword, it could drive up volume there and drive down the cost per outcome that you're looking for. So I think that does happen. I don't see any reason to believe that there is something within Apple that gives you preferential treatment if you're spending on search tab as well as search results. Not sure if that's what you were implying, but I don't see that. But I certainly see value in search. The Today tab, you mentioned that's the hardest one to get real value out of. I tend to agree, and I think it's because of that user flow. You hit that opening page and you go straight to the search. So I think you spend less time as a user on that page. And so if you're out there trying to make Today tab work for you, make sure that whatever shows up, that custom product page, make sure it's flashy. It's got to get someone's attention so that in that very short period of time, which has been proven to be effective. You don't need a lot of time for an ad to actually have it sink in and make someone do something, but the flashier, the better.
Yeah. There's another question here, which I always love. I love these. It's hard to speculate, right? Because it's like, I don't know, but I've had people talk to me about those job postings too. But Arjun, forgive me if I pronounced that wrong. So asks, any sense that Apple could expand its advertising solutions to third-party inventory? I've noticed some interesting job postings mentioning ad exchange, wondering if Apple is planning on relaunching an ad network similar to iAd, which was wound down in 2016. I know the iAd APIs were kind of part of what powered Apple Search Ads claims with MMP attribution partners until it was replaced with the ad services framework. But understanding none of us work for Apple and can't really speak on their behalf. Are there any just thoughts or even predictions of the future that any of you have around this question?
It's hard to believe that they're not thinking about this. Aside from the infrastructure and the positions that they're hiring that are referenced here, it's almost free money. You're just basically positioning advertisement for attribution that is already out there and that they don't need to serve. It's just really difficult to believe that they wouldn't be at least considering this. And the expansion of the name or the rebranding to Apple Ads definitely gives them now an umbrella to fit that in and have it make sense. So I don't know if they are, but I certainly hope they are.
Yeah. Well, I hope they're not. I mean, I hope it won't happen. because it's not like I like Apple. I have at least half or maybe most of their products, but we know that Apple, they are, how should I put it, they are a company that thinks that they know what is best for you, and then they don't give you a lot of room to decide. And then what I'm afraid of is that if it's going to happen, we won't be able to really toggle this on and off, and then just all the campaigns are going into also third-party inventory, which for sure, I think, at least as we see with Facebook and with Google, they have a lesser value, a user value there. So
Yeah.
just that's what I'm afraid of. So I won't be able to run the campaigns in the way that we like, and we'll be forced to also show ads in other placements.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's exactly where Google went. And now we can see that if you break down the components after the fact, the effectiveness of the ad network is very low. And so if it is forced to be bundled in and you can't do anything to select how it comes into your campaigns, I would agree with you, Yuri. That would be a problem.
Yeah. Well, and obviously WWDC right around the corner, coming up in a couple of weeks here. So we'll see what announcements happen there. I'm curious I know there's a lot of consumer facing kind of announcements and new operating system and devices, hardware, but I'm curious what may transpire that impacts ad tech and the whole digital advertising ecosystem. Okay, let's jump to, there's more questions. This is great. So let's jump to a question that came in during registration, and we see a ton as well. So I've just labeled this a common question, comes up all the time. How incremental is Apple Ads? And that's a loaded question. So maybe Hamilton, start with you, and any one of you feel free to popcorn style jump in here on this one.
Yeah, this is big enough for its own webinar. In fact, I think we've done multiple webinars specifically on the concept of incrementality. Just to start, defining incrementality, it's important to know what we're talking about here. The idea of incrementality is that an outcome that you wanted happened only because the ad was served. That would be incremental. In this particular case, if Lyft serves this ad on the Uber search term and it causes a ride to happen after the install, that would be an incremental outcome, because had the ad not shown, the person would have gone to Uber. Not exactly true, because if the next listed item is Lyft and they went to the organic ranking, they might have gotten that outcome for free. That would be an example of non-incremental. That they served the ad, the person skipped it, it didn't help make the outcome happen. And the question about whether or not ASA is incremental, the answer is we see all ranges of incrementality. There are cases where there is no incrementality, and there's cases where there is undeniable incrementality showing value well above the investment. And there's a handful of things that really determine whether your spend is going to be incremental. One is your balance between brand and non-brand spend. The second is your brand power. So how strong is your brand to get the people to click on it in the organic rank, even if a competitor shows up above it? Your category. So sometimes categories are so saturated with apps that you have to have a brand advertising in order to get incrementality. In other cases, it's just a couple like this one, Lyft and Uber. And then lastly is the amount that you're spending on ASA. There is a diminishing return as you increase your spend that you need to be very careful about. And that's different for all apps, and you need to experiment depending on what cocktail of keywords and ad placements that you have. But there is diminishing returns. And if you're pushing past that diminishing returns, it becomes less incremental. If you dial back from spend from that diminishing return, you are more incremental. So that's a big soupy answer to say it really depends. And if you ultimately want to know, and I encourage you to want to know because it's really important, I recommend using MMM tools, mixed media modeling tools, to do a probabilistic analysis of your incrementality. We have such a product, AIM, always on incremental measurement, and that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, I really agree with everything that Hamilton said. I think that it's the answer could be a little bit more simple to this if we also talk about the different placements. So in Today tab, Search tab, and Product Pages tab, the question of incrementality is just solved by targeting only for new users, right? So when you set up the ad group or ad set, how they call it, you can choose show your ads only for new users. So yes, I know that it's not 100% gives you only new users, but I think that it makes the most of it. So if you're running these campaigns, you can be rest assured that they are as incremental as possible. But the problem is really with the search results. And then if we're not talking about brand protect and only about generic keywords, so the answer is that if you have a new app with not a lot of organic ranked keywords, so it's probably all incremental. But if your app is more established and you see that you are ranked for popular keywords in one of the top 3 places, so you need to pay more attention to this and really not spend too much on keywords that you also ranked high organically, because probably you would get some of these installs from the organic search.
Yeah, that's a great aspect, is the duration of time that your app has been out there and how well known it is. So in other words, your incrementality decreases over time as people become more and more aware of your app.
Yeah. Julia and Jeff on this one. I know you work a lot with clients or prospects, right? They're like, help, I need help. And I know that like the question of should I spend on brand protection at all, let alone if I am, how much or what percentage of my budget. I think historically we've seen some instances, especially post like ATT framework coming on board, and a flood of spend in Apple search ads. For some folks, their brand spend it could be 80 or more % of their overall spend on all of Apple ads. What have you experienced on the front lines talking with real brands, trying to figure out next steps around this question of brand protection and whether to engage on that front at all?
Yeah, I mean, what we typically find. Oh, sorry, Julia.
Okay, Jeff, take it.
Okay, so what we typically find are advertisers kind of fall into 3 categories. You have advertisers that want to protect the brand at all costs, so they'll put high bids on their brand. They want to win 100% of their impressions. You have advertisers that don't think brand is incremental at all, so they don't even bother bidding. And then you have advertisers that are kind of somewhere in between. And we usually like to find that sweet spot in between. At a point, brand is going to be diminishing returns. It's not going to be incremental, and that's going to vary depending on the app. It depends on, like Hamilton said, the strength of your brand, but it doesn't always depend on the strength of your brand. Like in the example of Uber and Lyft, both are very, very strong brands, but customer loyalty to a specific rideshare app is probably not very high. You just want to get from point A to point B. So Lyft bidding on Uber is likely very incremental, and Lyft bidding on Lyft is likely also incremental because they could lose to Uber bidding on their keyword. So it's a balance you kind of have to find. Usually, trying to figure out the ideal share of voice for your brand where things are incremental, and just kind of sticking there is a good strategy.
Yeah. Julie, any thoughts you would add on to that from your experience?
Yeah, I would say having the right strategies based on your current performance is important for your brand. So for example, we've worked with a fast food company where, unlike some where Jeff has mentioned, hey, I have unlimited budget, I want 100% share of voice. This company was, I want the highest share of voice possible, but they're finding that they're running out of their budget before 12 p.m. on the day of. And for a fast food company, that was not great because they wanted their brand to show up at the hours where people are ordering, which is breakfast time, lunchtime, and early dinner time. So having the right automation strategy is important because how we work with them is we have an hourly update based on their budget so that we stretch out their budget for the remainder of the day, allowing their brand to then show up at 12 and then the early dinner time. So as Jeff mentioned, it really depends on the category, the vertical, your ROAS numbers, how competitive it is, and then what is your specific target for your brand for the different hours of the day.
Yeah. what I was going to say too, I know brand protection probably will come up additionally during the webinar. If you were in the docs tab, or you can find it, it's up in the upper right. I included the screenshot. Check it out. There's an ebook in there that dives deep into brand protection and kind of unpacks the 3 segments that Jeff, you were talking about in terms of like, hey, are you trying to dominate the field and win maximum impression share, like 90 to 100% at all costs? If you are, there's probably a more efficient way to do that, where you could maybe even decrease your CPT by maybe up to 85% or reduce spend significantly and still accomplish pretty much the same impression share. Then there's the folks that are kind of in the middle. Maybe they have a budget that's allocated and they just exhaust that budget. And there's better ways you can do that to spread it across the day, kind of the example Julia was talking about. And there's also for the folks that are like, I really don't want to spend on brand. We don't see it as incremental for us, and our brand isn't one we feel like we have to protect heavily. There are ways where you can still be in the battle with very minimal spend, but don't make yourself an easy target to be picked off, because there is that notion of if you're not on brand at all, in terms of any brand spend, then it becomes that much more incremental for any competitor to bid on your terms without you in the fight at all, in the bidding. So check that out. If brand protection is a topic that interests you and it's a challenge, go and you can click through on that and download that later and read through that, and then contact us if you have any questions. There's another question that came up here that I will bring onto the screen from Chris. So 1 second here, let me pop that up here. This is a good question, and I think any one of you could potentially chime in on this. One of the recent developments with Apple search ads, I think this was before the switch from Apple search ads to Apple ads. But right before that, you remember they announced that they would start to call through the SK ad network, the StoreKit ad network, often referred to as SCAN, which hasn't happened since SCAN really kind of grew in adoption right after the release of iOS 14.5 in April of 2021. So that means, ad networks that have integrated with the SK ad network to send through impression and click signal for attribution through Apple's privacy first kind of measurement framework. So now Apple search ads is in the mix on that, and calling, I think, SCAN 3, version 3. But Chris's question here is, how should we think about the role of modeled attribution in an iOS environment dominated by privacy first frameworks like SK ad network? Does it genuinely provide incremental value, or does it risk introducing more noise than signal? So great question. I think MMM probably factors into this to a degree as well. But Julia, Hamilton, any one of you, feel free to bite on this one here.
Yeah, I would say with SCAD Network, the interesting thing is that Apple Ads doesn't really participate in SCAD Network present state. So they don't really play by their own rules, so to speak. When it comes to SCAD Network reporting data, typically I recommend using it as kind of a directional piece to go along with your row level attribution data. You don't want to combine those two data sources because there's overlap. SCAD Network is going to contain your opt-in and opt-out users combined. So I've seen advertisers in the past that are combining these two data sets, and that's causing inflation because they're kind of double counting those opt-in users. And so there is risk to have more noise.
Jeff, I believe that they are now adding Apple to SCAD. And
I think it was sometime in April. We have a blog about it on the Kochava blog, but just recently. So yeah, now calling ads and reporting, I think views as well as taps into the SK ad network on version 3. I think we're on version 4 in terms of most of the industry adoption at this time. So they're finally there. And that means that when you were looking at your scan data, I think for a long time, if you had, partners like TikTok and AppLovin and, Digital Turbine, you name it, have been integrated with SCAN for a while and sending their signal through it. And so your attribution outcomes reported through SCAN, I don't think have included Apple ads. Apple ads was kind of measured in its own separate kind of silo differently. So at least now you're not you're having, I guess, deduplication, whereas before you might have had an Apple Ads conversion reported through Apple Search Ads, but then, maybe your scan data showed that install going somewhere else. So it does help for I think like you were talking about, Jeff, the notion of these disparate data sets coming a little bit closer together to help deduplicate and diffuse, if you will, the disparate nature between those two things. But yeah, I kind of took over there, Hamilton. So any thoughts you would add based on that entrance of scan for Apple Ads?
Yeah, just one last thought on that is that if you do use SCAD, I strongly recommend that you ensure that you get the Apple data in, and it gives what Jeff Lawrence, you described as a general guidance around what's going on, apples to apples across all your platforms. If you're already using SCAD, definitely integrate that data. To the question around whether or not to use modeled attribution, I strongly believe that you want to use modeled attribution in the form of MMM to best allocate the right amount of money and in the best way to your ASA spend. We do that for you through a combination of the Search Ads Maven platform and the always-on incremental measurement platform. AIM is an MMM. That gives you both that incrementality lift. A lot of people do a lot of incrementality reports, but MMM goes further and tells you not only just the point in time incrementality of the spend that you have, but makes recommendations about what you should do. Spend more here, spend less there. That combination with optimization from Search Ads Maven on your actual Apple Ads spend is the best combination. It is not noise, it cuts through the noise, and it gives you the ability to go after the campaigns that are really driving real value.
I think too, it probably does the best job of understanding the cross influence on your other media mix variables, right? Because if you're running CTV or other upper funnel media, right, maybe mobile ad network DSP campaigns as well, search, then on top of that, you have Apple Ads, you're going to see an uptick in search. And you may want to protect your brand during a time window when you're running heavy CTV efforts, right? Because at that point, yeah, there are going to be more people searching your brand. You don't want to leave that unprotected and let your biggest competitor poach off those potential customers. And MMM or modeled attribution is the best way to understand that. I would almost call it interaction between the different funnels of the media. So Julie, I think you were starting to say something. I jumped in there.
Yeah, no worries. I was going to say, if you really want to understand incrementality, using MMM is important because you're also able to add in external factors. So for example, seasonality, holidays, weather, things like this, where you're not able to see in last touch attribution or even multi-touch, that would be a key differentiator. As Hamilton has also mentioned, you're able to see how incremental each channel is down to the campaign level. And with forecasting, what you're also able to detect is things like, if you increase your spend in this campaign next week by this amount, there's also a forecast of how many installs or post-install activities you'd get. And in terms of accuracy, is usually within 95% accuracy. So if you want to learn more or want a specific consultation in looking at how Apple Ads is incremental for you, feel free to click that button, the orange one up there, and then we can follow up specifically and look at your campaigns.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Let's shift gear to another question. I want to try and get as many in here as we can. So this came in from Marcelo, who's an associate director. How do I measure essentially in-app events by campaign? How can I optimize on post-install KPIs versus just installs? This is a great question because unlike many other mobile networks, if you will, that have app event optimization capacity built in. So not just install, but installs that go on to do something in app. That's not the case with Apple Ads natively. So any one of you, maybe Julia, starting with you, how would you answer this question?
Yes, I can start with that. So currently, if you're using the Apple native dashboard, you might be able to see all the keywords and how it drives installs. So for example, games or slot games or casino games are driving 20, 30, 40 installs for you. But using any campaign management partners, for example, Search Ads Maven is one, we can tie to your MMP, whether that's Kochava or other MMPs that you're currently using. So rather than seeing it towards just the installs. You can see in-app purchases, you can see revenue. We've also worked with a lot of companies where they're on a subscription base. So you can see these keywords led to these amount of 7-day trials, and then these keywords led to these amount of subscriptions. And maybe I'll hand it off to Jeff to share some of examples that we've seen and use the data to automate for our customers as well.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. So you'll often see this if you're only looking in Apple's native platform and you're just looking at the app downloads. You might have a skewed vision on the actual performance of a given keyword. Take for instance, if you have a paid app, and let's say you have a keyword that's free something, and that keyword looks like it performs very well. It drives users into the app, they download. But if you look beyond the download, you find these users aren't making purchases because they're expecting something that's free. And so without a lens beyond the download, you can't really see how effective each individual keyword is at driving the KPIs that you actually care about. So by connecting a tool like Search Ads Maven or CMP, you can connect the dots between the download and post-install activity to figure out which keywords are actually driving users that are doing the things you want them to do.
Yeah, further down the funnel.
Yeah.
And then I think, maybe Hamilton, you could speak to this, and Yuri as well. I think just in terms of Hamilton, maybe the automation based off of like the notion of a custom goal. So not install, but custom goal, whether that's, I don't know, ROAS or specific event action taking place. Can you speak to that briefly? And then Yuri, I'd just love you to jump in from the clients that you've worked with and help consult, how often they're looking to move beyond that install to an event.
Yeah, absolutely. When we bring events into a platform like Search Ads Maven, we're tying them at that keyword level, that keyword ID level. And so when it rolls up from keyword to ad group to campaign, that's how effectively we're measuring at a campaign level those events. But you can go down to the keyword level as well. From an automation perspective, that's really important because you really want to make sure that you're driving higher bids to those keywords that are performing and lower bids for those that aren't. It will push those keywords that are performing up, and you can find out whether a higher bid gets you more volume for a similar cost, or if your performance starts to degrade. And all of that can be at a ROAS. It can be a cost per some in-app event, or just cost per installs. And what the defining point to figure out where you're going to optimize to is just volume of data. If you have a lot of volume of data for the outcomes that you want at the keyword level, you can effectively optimize to the cost per event or ROAS if it produces revenue. If not, then what you want to do is optimize towards an event that you have higher volume on that you believe is predictive of a purchase. So for instance, if you have to sign up for free to make a in-app purchase, the in-app purchases don't happen very often, but sign up does. And you believe that someone that signs up is much higher likelihood to purchase, you could optimize towards that sign up.
Yeah. So I agree with everybody, obviously. Yeah. So I agree with what everyone said. I usually work with subscription apps. So obviously with subscription apps, if you can't measure, in-app events like completing onboarding or registering for a free trial, so you don't understand what's the value of Apple Search Ads. So obviously you need to do this, and yes, you can sign up to an MMP. And then get it's really easy. The automation there, the simplest automation is with the Apple Search Ads. But if you're on a budget, so there are two other ways for you to track the performance of the campaigns in terms of the in-app events and trials and purchases. So one thing, first of all, you can do this by yourself by connecting to Apple API. And then just communicating with this. It's a technical thing. I don't know the magic that they do there, but it's not, from what I understand, it's not very complicated for a simple developer. So he can build it for you, and then you just look every day on the amount of events that happen through Apple Search Ads. The other thing, the easiest part, if you don't have even a developer, so you must have App Store Connect, and then through App Store Connect you can create a custom product page. Custom product page, that's how they're called. And then you just assign the custom product page for a specific campaign. So you have up to 35 custom product pages to create on App Store Connect. It's quite enough for if you're a small app. And then what happens is in App Store Connect reporting, you can see how much sales and in-app purchases the custom product page has created, and then you assign it to Apple Search Ads. So this is like a low-cost solution, the simplest one. But obviously, the best is MMP, but they can be also quite costly.
Yeah, and I think custom product pages as a whole, we could do a whole webinar on that too, in terms of those are highly beneficial, especially if I think there was an example of an app that did personalized products, right? So think of like, hey, personalized invites for a wedding versus graduation versus maybe a baby shower or something like that. And so you know, depending on the term that someone's searching, right, you would want to have a custom product page assigned to that campaign or ad group that reflects baby shower invites versus graduation, something or other, because then it's going to increase the chance that someone goes and sees that and then gets the app and does something further down funnel in app. Anything you would want to add to that, Hamilton? Oh, and you're muted.
I'm muted because someone decided to start jackhammering literally outside my window, and I feel like they're jackhammering my forehead. It's like,
oh, geez.
it's so intense. No, I have nothing to add to that. That's a good summary.
That's great. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to launch another poll here. So I'm going to open this in the polls tab. So go ahead and jump over there and vote on that. And then we have so many questions. There's no way we're going to get through all of these, but I'm going to pick off the next question here that came in from one of our registrants so that we can try and get through a few more of these before our time is up. So this one, let me bring it up on stage, is from Tamanda, who's a global UA title. I don't know if it's manager, director. So Tamanda says, we are getting quite a lot of irrelevant keywords in discovery campaigns with considerable number of installs. How much of these should we be trying to incorporate into the BAU? So I think it's business as usual campaigns. So kind of maybe always on. Also, how clean should the campaigns be? Meaning less pausing of keywords and more active keywords. So any thoughts any of you would share on Tamanda's question?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would start by asking, what defines a keyword as relevant when it comes to Apple Search Ads? Is it purely based on, your feature alignment within your app or your brand? I think that those things are important to consider, but what's probably most important is the actual performance of a given keyword. So you could have keywords that don't seem relevant to your app at all, but if they're performing well, why not add them to your campaigns? Is my thought. And then, as far as having a clean campaign, making the decision to pause a keyword usually depends on performance. We typically have a perspective that a keyword could be bad now, but it could be good later. It's a dynamic auction and things are always changing. So typically our perspective on pausing keywords is more backing off on the bids to allow competitors to win impressions on those keywords in the hopes that eventually they'll also see that those keywords aren't performant and back off, which could in turn make them more performant for us. So usually pausing keywords is like a last resort. If you have a keyword that you've tested multiple times and it's just never performing, then toss that aside. But for the most part, a keyword could kind of flow in and out of being performant.
Anything else that Yuri, Julia,
yeah, sure,
want to add to this?
Yeah, so I think what she means is that irrelevant search terms, right? Because a keyword is something that you decide, and if it's not relevant, so you can just not use this keyword the first place. But if you have a broad discovery campaign with broad keywords, and there are some search terms that you think they are irrelevant, so as Jeff said before me, so I will just make the decision based on the performance, and if the performance in terms of in-app events, right, if the cost per free trial, cost per purchase, or things like that, they are unacceptable. So yeah, obviously you should not take this to your business as usual campaign. To take this specific keyword there. But yeah, you have the option to choose or to pause or to reduce the bid. I agree with Jeff. I prefer to reduce the bid and just keep the bid low, and just I would only pause it if there are so much search volume there that it's not even helping when I'm reducing the bid. Yeah, that's what the main question, right? How clean should the campaign be? I like clean campaigns, but I'm not sure it has to do with with the discovery. So yeah, I hope I got it right.
No, that's great. That's great. And I want to roll right into another question because it kind of fits with this one. This is a common question that kind of the group here collectively said, I get this all the time. How can I find more keywords that will work for me, right? There's tons of like thousands upon thousands of keywords, maybe millions of keywords, actually, if you think about all the different app store countries out there. And so the question, I guess, here would be, how do you weed through that to find ones and then have the time to test them to see if they even do work for you, and then decide which ones are the ones work or the right ones to add to a business as usual or always on campaign?
Yeah, this is a big question. And unfortunately, it does depend on your category. So we were just talking about Lyft and Uber. The rideshare category does not have a lot of relevant keywords. And so you have to get really creative. And even when you do, you might just have a limited number of keywords that are going to apply in the category that you're in. What we believe, though, is to whatever degree you can, the initial list of keywords that are going to perform, it's usually pretty obvious. You guys are probably already going through the process to find a majority of those. You can get creative by going to categories of apps that are outside of your direct competition. For instance, we recently had a gambling app, online gambling, and we looked at hundreds of keywords in the categories of grilling apps, hunting apps, financial apps, a wide variety of different topics that wouldn't be the sweet spot for gambling. And with gambling, it's incredibly expensive. The keywords are outrageously expensive. And so we were able to find a handful of keywords in those categories. After testing 600 some odd keywords, we found a couple that produced at a lower cost. It was a lower event rate, but because it was such a lower cost, it was a pretty performant set of keywords. So we recommend doing that. You can do a number of things within the tools that are in Search Ads Maven and platforms like it. And then you can also use LLMs to drive that ideation around categories that might be peripheral. So that's something that we've done recently that we think is pretty useful.
Yeah,
I'll add to that as well, Hamilton. I think in certain tools, you're able to do more research on keywords. So for example, understanding how popular a keyword is, which will indicate how often people are searching for the keyword. What is the Apple share of voice on the keywords? What are the competitors that are currently bidding on that keyword? So you know if you want to really add that to your campaign. And what I've seen is there is ability to test hundreds and even thousands of keywords, and would be great if Jeff can talk a little bit more about our keyword journey automation as well, because if you're in a situation where there's only a couple of keywords that work for you and you're trying to find more, there's a way to do that. So Jeff, it'd be great if you can share a little bit more about that.
And that's you, Jeff Lawrence, not me. Okay.
So, yeah. So I mean, the challenge of finding new keywords is great, but there's also a challenge in finding the right bid for those keywords. Once you've found a keyword, what do you bid on it? Yeah. So we take approach of kind of breaking keywords into different stages or different categories. When a keyword first starts or you're first added to a campaign, it's going to have no volume, no impressions, no taps. So we increment the bid on those keywords, usually by a very small amount, a penny or 3 cents or something, until we find volume. And then once we find taps, now we're starting to pay. So now we want to be conservative with how much we spend on any of these keywords that we're testing. And so we'll set a spend cap so before we'll let the keyword spend too much. So if a keyword gets to a spend cap before it reaches or achieves an install, then we're going to bring the bid down and kind of let it sit until that spend falls off, and then we might retest it. Once a keyword gets installs, then we kind of base our bids off of a cost per install. So we target, a certain cost per install that we want to achieve with the campaign, and we'll calculate the bids based on that. And then if you're driving towards post-install events, we'll also add a layer for keywords that generate events. We'll base our bids off of a cost per outcome or a ROAS target. And so that lets you kind of increment the keywords through all these different stages, and keywords can kind of move throughout these stages over time as their performance changes. So instead of pausing a keyword if its performance is bad, it'll just kind of move down to these other stages and retest. And so another thing you want to be considerate when you're testing a bunch of keywords is, do you have the budget to test? So you want to make sure that you're not blowing your budget early in the day just for the sake of testing keywords. So you got to be kind of mindful with the amount of keywords that you add in relation to your budget. But if you have enough budget, you can add hundreds or even keywords to a campaign, and automation like ours could properly test all of those keywords.
Yeah. And I just shared we got some more poll results jumping in here on just average monthly spend on Apple ads. So an interesting mix, and multiple that are not spending yet, but planning to start soon. So there's always new app developers, new apps being launched, starting to advertise the App Store, and Apple Ads is like a great place to kick that journey off right before you, go to outside channels if your app's just getting launched. I know I want to share this question here that was an RSVP question that came in from Daniel, who's a senior manager of user acquisition. I'm trying to scale in a small state, population around 3 million. Been trying to spend 1,000 per day, but I'm only getting up to 500 per day. It's for a sportsbook app, so I'm wondering if the volume just isn't there. Any recommendation for a scenario like this?
Yeah, so this is tough. So the sportsbook apps, that category, Apple has you stitched up a bit, because you can't use with that category of apps, you can't use search tab or today tab or product pages. It has to be the search results. People have to show intent before they're willing to show your ad. That right there limits a lot of your growth. And then it sounds like you're targeting a specific state. I'm assuming you mean a state within the United States, so you're using the location-based targeting. That in and of itself, this is good for folks to note, is that you have to have location active and allowed on the Apple platform for that information to reflect, for ads to show, and not everybody does. So that requirement to go to the particular state cuts down the available potential of people with iPhones in that state by large double-digit percentages. So it's problematic. You may, Daniel, be running into actual physical limitations because of all of those things I mentioned. In order to make it a larger spend, you either have to go higher on your bids, which is going to make your performance go down, and we're probably talking about pretty expensive keywords that you're on, or go wide on much more creative keywords that maybe are lower volume. You're in a tough spot. It is. I would not sugarcoat it. It's that is a challenge with what you're trying to accomplish there.
Yeah. And I'll jump into a final question here, since we're getting close to time. I want to try and pick off one more that was a common question we got a number of times during registration. So it can maybe be our final question here. Can I target a % of SOV, so share of voice, or also known as impression share? If so, what should I be aiming for? That's a really good question, and it's probably an it depends. But maybe Yuri, can we kick off with you, and then anybody else feel free to popcorn as we close up here on this one?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know if technically you can have you don't have campaign optimization events in Apple Search Ads as you have in Google Ads, where you can for search ads to target share of voice. They have a different name for it. They call it impression share or something like that. But if you want manually to do this, meaning increasing bids and budgets until you get the amount of share of voice that you want, or reducing it. So yes, you can do this, and what you should be aiming for is what you want to achieve. So if this, that this is a keyword that produces the outcome that you want, so try to get 100% of it. And if it's 100% of it, you see that you're still happy with the results, so keep going. Very simple.
Jeff, in just the last couple of seconds, we do in Search Ads Maven have the ability to target a specific percentage share of voice, and we'd be happy to work with any of you to accomplish that percent and do the testing that Yuri's talking about, because that's exactly right. We want to test it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was fun. We have a lot of questions that are still pending, so we will compile those and help get those answers and then follow up with those. So thank you for everyone that registered and submitted a question there, for all the live questions today and the poll engagement. And we're at time. So Hamilton, Jeff, Julia, Yuri, thank you again for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Or for you, Yuri, go get some sleep, because I think it's pretty late where you're at.
Yeah, thank you. That was real fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yuri,
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.